Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
Salam.
How are you today?
I'm good, Alhamdulillah. Alisa, should I address you Alisa?
Sure, can. Okay,
Okay.
okay. Dr. Siti Roshaidai, correct?
Correct.
Okay, can we start now?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Hi and Assalamualaikum. Welcome to the first episode of CHEMLIFE Podcast, Season 5. And for today's episode, I am Adisa and I will be your moderator. I want to start with an incident that shocked us Malaysians not long ago, where a heartbreaking scene was captured. A mother elephant and her baby was seen crossing the road when a speeding lorry was seen hitting the baby. The calf unfortunately died on the spot, but what truly moved the heart of Malaysians was that the mother did not budge or did not move at all. She stood by her baby's lifeless body in silence, in grief, as if still trying to protect that once meant something so much to her. And this happened sadly on Mother's Day. That image raises a very powerful question to the listeners. Is it love? And if it is love, when does it happen? Could it be way earlier than we think? Maybe in our biological system? We do not know. We don't know. And so that brings us into today's episode. Is your first cry actually your first love? In order for us to delve deeper into this topic, we would like to deeply honor and welcome Dr. Siti Roshaida binti Muhammad Arifin, a respected voice in maternal health and neurohormonal research. Little bit about herself is that Dr. Siti holds a PhD in midwifery from the University of Stirling, a master's degree in nursing science from University Malaya, and a Bachelor of Health Science in Nursing from University Science Malaysia. She brings with her today not only academic expertise but years of insight into what happens chemically and emotionally into the earliest moments of life. Dr. Siti, welcome to ChemLife Podcast.
Thank you so much, Alisa.
All right, so may I begin with the first question?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so doctor, people often talk about love at first sight, but what about cry at first sight? Is that cry just a reflex, or could it also mark the beginning of life from a biochemical point of view? Because we know that to signal that a baby is safely born into the world, we see it through its cry.
Right. Thank you so much, Alisa, for your question. And thank you so much for your team inviting me to be here today. And to answer your question just now, I think it's very beautiful when you start with the story of the elephant's mom and also the babies. I think it is very what we call a powerful moment to all Malaysians, including us here. And okay, let us back to the question that you asked me just now. Thinking of the first cry, is that the signs of love in humans, right? So let us think this, yeah, when a baby is born, what is the first thing everyone waits to hear, right? We looking for the cry, right? That loud, the dramatic little scream by the baby. It's not just the background noise in the delivery room, but it's also the signs of our very first, what we call the sign of life, where the baby's way of saying that I'm here. And when I talk about this moment, I always like to remind everyone of a very simple but powerful note that we are all once that baby, right? So you, me, everyone here, we are that baby. We have made that same journey. So just for a moment, imagine yourself as that baby or as that newborn. So you are taking your first breath and letting out your first cry. So it connects us not just as individuals, but also as human beings with a shared beginning. So you see, when we were inside our mom's body, our mom's womb or our mom's uterus, we don't need to breathe, right? So our lungs is actually were filled with fluid. So how do we get oxygen? The oxygen come through the umbilical cord, and it is delivered straight away from our mom to us. So, but at the moment we were born, the umbilical cord is cut off, right? So suddenly we were in the bright and also cold environment, cold world. And at that time, the gravity hit us, the light hit us, and also the noise hit us. And then our body says, now is the time for you to breathe on your own, right? And what triggered that? So the one who triggered that is the first cry. So remember, the crying during the labor is not just a sound, but it's also a life-saving act. Why I say it is life-saving act? Uh, because that cry helps the baby to inflate their lungs with the air for the first time. So it's just like opening a balloon that we never opened before or we never used it before. So it's also to clear out all the leftover fluid in our lungs and then push the oxygen through the body. And also we what we call let the heart and the brain to function well at that time. So behind the scene, something amazing is happening. So when the baby's brain now, specifically at the brainstem, um, will kick in, so the brain will function well. And then when the umbilical cord is cut and there is no longer oxygen direct from our mother to us or from the mother to the baby, now the sensors in the body notice that the oxygen is low because we no longer have the umbilical cord just now, right? And also they notice that the carbon dioxide is high. So the brain sends the signals that the baby now need to breathe, and at that time the diaphragm will contract and the air rushes in. So the crying is actually the ultimate survival mechanism for the baby. So now we or the baby want to tell the world that I'm here, I'm alive, I'm surviving, and I'm trying, right? So the crying ensures that everyone responds to us or respond to the baby, and it's also activate the maternal instinct and then stimulate the oxytocin in the mother, right? Listening to the baby crying will stimulate the oxytocin of the mother. And at the same time, the same crying also can melt the toughest heart, the man's heart, which is father, right? So, and some scientists call the first cry a life signal, the nature way of saying that take care of me. But let's also not to forget that this first cry is more than just biology. It's a deeply emotional, and the first moment the baby experiences cold, the hunger, and also noise and even pain. So I think it's a raw expression of the life beginning, I would say. And for the parents, it's the sounds of relief. You know, when the mother or the father hear the sounds of the first cry, they will feel relief, and they will feel the love and also connection with the baby. So no wonder many mothers say that hearing the first cry is when they finally feel everything is okay. So, you know, when we always hear about love at first sight in romantic movies, and this the kind where two people lock eyes across a crowded room, for example, and then live happily ever after. But in real life, I think sometimes love starts with a cry, right? A very loud one. So yes, maybe our first cry is our first act of love. It connects us with the person who carried us, and later will now care for us with all her heart, which is our mom. And so the next time you hear a baby cry, remember that it's not just a noise; it's a science, it's a survival, it's a communication, it's a love, which is all wrapped in one tiny voice. Yes, Alisa. Hope that answered your question.
Very interesting, actually. I never knew that the baby's first cry was its life signal. But earlier you mentioned about oxytocin. And as we all know, oxytocin is known as the love hormone. But it sounds too simple for something too powerful, especially for mothers. So, in your opinion, how does oxytocin makes everyday actions like hugging, breastfeeding, or skin-to-skin contact feels deeply comforting for the mothers? And is there a biological mechanism at work here?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm really glad you asked that question. I teach a lot about this topic, how the reflex of oxytocin happens, especially among breastfeeding mothers. So now let us imagine a mother is holding her baby close, and then you imagine the little fingers we wrap the mother, and then imagine if the mother is breastfeeding, right? So when the baby suckles, or when the mother cuddle the baby skin to skin, you mentioned skin to skin just now, and all the situation, the breastfeeding, holding, suckling, all of this situation, we release oxytocin from the mother's brain. So the oxytocin is produced in a part of the brain, we call it hypothalamus, and it is a posterior pituitary gland, the place who release the oxytocin. And from the brain or from the posterior pituitary gland, the oxytocin will release to the bloodstream and then travel to the breast. So what happens when it gets there? This oxytocin will tell the breast to let the milk flow. So we call this as a let down reflex or oxytocin reflex. But at the same time, it also tells the mother's mind that you are safe, you are doing okay, you are connected. So it's such a giving a positive, what we call positive message to the mother. So in that way, it will bring down the stress level of the mother, will slow down the heart rate, and also relax the muscle and give the mother a kind of peaceful feelings of feel warm at that time. And you know what? That's real. That's not our imagination. The oxytocin working is magic. Even a simple hug, you mentioned about hugging just now. A simple hug also can trigger the oxytocin. So yes, like a warm hug from someone that you love, a hand on your shoulder, for example, and also a cuddle with your baby. So these are all can produce more oxytocin. So that's why we often say physical touch also heals. So that's why also moms often say breastfeeding feels more than just feeding. It's calming, it's soothing, and also comforting them. And you know what? Many of the mothers, they fall asleep while breastfeeding because they feel so comfortable, right? So relaxed at that time. And the scientific research or the scientific work also show that new mothers or who are breastfeeding, they are more responsive to their baby's cries, and this will link to being more sensitive and more caring towards the baby in the following weeks after the childbirth. So yes, oxytocin small amount, but it's powerful. It helps the mother to bond. It helps the mother to feel calm and also fall in love again and again, especially with the baby, lah, especially when they are holding their baby. So for mothers, especially new mothers, oxytocin plays such a big role. And on top of that, in the early stages of motherhood, oxytocin also promotes bonding and emotional connection. So oxytocin is sometimes called, you mentioned about love hormones just now, we also call bonding hormones or cuddle hormones. So it deepens the emotional connection between the mother and the baby, which of course this is very critical in early days when everything feels very new to the mother, feels so intense and sometimes can be overwhelmed for certain mothers. But the good thing about oxytocin is that it's also reduced the stress and anxiety, right? So research also show that the oxytocin will bring down the cortisol, the stress hormones, and this will help the mother to feel calmer and more grounded and emotionally stable, even after they had a sleepless night. And I believe that oxytocin does not only help to make the mother comfortable, mother comfortable, but also will build the connection between the mother and the baby, and also, I mean, especially during the breastfeeding.
Oh, so that's why sometimes I hear people saying, oh, it's worth it apa membesarkan seorang anak. Okay. So we know oxytocin plays a crucial role in childbirth, especially because oxytocin stimulates the act of labor. But from a medical perspective, how do you think it assists doctors or midwives in guiding new mothers through those first critical moments? Because I have also heard that in the labor room, mothers are actually not suggested to scream or shout like in the K dramas we watch on television. So, what is your insights on this?
Hi, interesting, Alisa. You have that kind of knowledge about the labor room. I'm impressed with your knowledge. I think that's a very important question. Oxytocin is essential throughout the childbirth journey, before, during, and even after the labor and childbirth. So what is the role of oxytocin before labor? Of course, oxytocin plays a crucial role. You mentioned just now, oxytocin is important to initiate the labor, to start the labor, and we also understand that the oxytocin plays its role in initiating the contraction of the uterus. We call it uterine contraction, and one of the muscles we call it myometrium. So the contraction of these muscles is very important to trigger the onset of labor. So this is the first step in guiding the baby out of the mother's womb and come to this world. So during labor, oxytocin will stimulate the uterine contraction again, and to ensure that they are strong, the contraction is strong, and the contraction is effective, so that this will allow the labor to progress smoothly. So what happens if, let's say, oxytocin levels are insufficient? So the labor maybe becomes slower or prolonged. We call it prolonged labor. And in some cases, this can lead to the need for the medical intervention, such as cesarean section. I believe that many of you have heard about the operation or the cesarean section for the mother. So that's why sometimes we give the synthetic oxytocin to the mother during their labor to induce or to strengthen the uterine contractions I mentioned just now, so that we can help the mother to progress well during the labor and childbirth process. So it may be also administered immediately after childbirth. So we give the injection after childbirth to prevent excessive bleeding. So how we do that? We give the injection so that the artificial or the synthetic oxytocin will stimulate the uterus to contract effectively. Therefore, it will prevent the bleeding. And also after labor, of course, a sufficient amount of oxytocin is very important to make sure that the muscles of the myometrium, I mentioned just now about myometrium, to contract and retract or relax, so that the what we call the vaginal bleeding or postpartum hemorrhage can be prevented. So that's why if you see the mother who are breastfeeding, normally this risk is lower. But the amazing part is that oxytocin normally does not stop working once the baby is born. So it still continue working after that. In fact, it continues to be released, and even more oxytocin released during the breastfeeding. And of course, this play a vital role in supporting the mother's healing, the physical healing, and also the emotional recovery. So how does this actually support what we call this, help to help the nurses or help the midwives or the doctors to support mothers? So we understand that oxytocin actually gives the midwives, the nurses, a natural window into the mother's transition. So the midwife, especially, they will monitor how breastfeeding is going, how well the uterus is recovering, and how connected or overwhelmed the mothers feel. And this assessment are actually related to the oxytocin role. So in hospital, we also have what we call Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative, BFHI, right? So under this initiative, the mother are encouraged and supported to breastfeed soon after birth, usually within first hour. So at that time, the baby will stay close with their mothers. They are not separated unless it is really necessary. And also our hospital staff are trained to help the mothers to breastfeed comfortably and also confidently. We also, I mean, the hospital staff, the nurses, the midwife especially, they are taught about the benefits of breast milk and how to continue breastfeeding at home, especially once the mother are discharged from the hospital. At the same time, the hospital also will avoid giving formula milk or pacifier, the fake nipples, right? Unless it is really medically needed now to protect the breastfeeding so that we will support the sufficient amount of oxytocin among these new mothers. So what does research says? The research found that the higher levels of oxytocin in new mothers were associated with the greater sensitivity and also stronger emotional bonding between the mother and the baby. And there's also research who reported that the lower oxytocin levels can be linked to higher case of postnatal depression. And now we understand that how essential the oxytocin is for the emotional well-being, not only for physical, but also for emotional well-being of the mothers. So this is why the doctors, the nurses, the midwife today, they don't just focus on the physical aspect of the birth, but they also pay close attention to the emotional and also the bonding between mother and baby. And this, of course, can help the mother to focus on their motherhood or motherhood task. So for me, I believe that oxytocin is more than a hormone. It's a natural guide that helps the mother to heal, helps the mother to bond with the baby. And as a nurse, as a midwife, I think this oxytocin level is very important for them who can act like a biological compass that can help them to understand what a mother needs, either physical or emotional needs.
Thank you, doctor. So what I understand is that oxytocin guides the mother like a biological compass throughout transitioning into motherhood. Is that right?
Yes, correct, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so being a first-time mother for most people, giving birth can be a beautiful, yet overwhelming process because there is physical recovery, hormonal changes, and emotional roller coasters that they do not know how to handle. So, can oxytocin help mothers cope with the emotional side of this journey, including things like anxiety or postpartum depression? Like you mentioned earlier, that high levels of oxytocin are proven to reduce cortisol levels. So, how would you relate to that?
Yeah, I really like that question, Anissa. I think I have been working in this area, the anxiety, depression after giving birth for more than 10 years. So I really like you asked that question. Now, so far we have learned that oxytocin is released during childbirth, during the skin to skin contact, and also during breastfeeding. So we understand that. We also understand that oxytocin will promote the bonding, will reduce the stress or bring down the stress level, and helps to create a sense of emotional safety and calm for the mother. I also mentioned just now that the role of oxytocin does not stop after labor. In fact, it may play critical role in mental health during postpartum period. And you mentioned just now that during postpartum period, the mother may feel overwhelmed, the mother feel anxious, and even some of the mother might have depression. So yes, correct. So after birth, normally some mothers they experience more than just baby blues. If you heard about that term before, or we call it mood swings, right? And some of the mother they may feel deeply sad, they feel hopeless, and some of them can feel disconnected from the baby or guilty for not feeling joyful, right? Feeling joyful after giving birth. So if these symptoms continue every day for more than 2 weeks, right, it may be a sign of postpartum depression. And this postpartum depression can affect about 1 in 5 women worldwide. About 20 to 25 women worldwide were affected by the postpartum depression. And I mentioned just now that research shows oxytocin helps in regulating moods and reducing stress. How? Oxytocin actually interacts with the limbic system, the part of the brain that handles the emotions, the bonding, and also fears. So, when the oxytocin levels are high, then the mother will tend to feel more connected to their baby, um, more emotionally stable, less anxious, and also less overwhelmed. But when the oxytocin levels are low, research also show that there may be a higher risk of postpartum depression. And studies also found that women with postpartum depression normally had significantly lower oxytocin levels than those without the mental health issues. So now we understand that skin to skin contact, the early breastfeeding, and also the physical touch, all of these will naturally increase the oxytocin. And of course, by increasing the level of oxytocin, this can prevent or protect the mother against the postpartum depression. So to answer your question, I think yes. I mean, of course, the oxytocin will protect against the postpartum depression. So how can we support the oxytocin naturally? First, of course, we need to skin contact. Second, breastfeeding regularly and breastfeeding more at night. More oxytocin will be released by breastfeeding at night. Third, gentle massage or touch. And then spending more time with the baby. And fourth, get emotional support from loved ones, especially husband. And I believe that oxytocin can help moms to deal with their stress, to deal with their emotional struggles after giving birth, right?
All right, that was such an insightful sharing you've got right there. Because I've just known that oxytocin are produced more at night. Okay,
Right. Mhm.
this has been a heart opening and a very insightful conversation with you, Doctor. So, thank you, Dr. Roshaidai, for your knowledge and insight. For us, for the listeners today, you proved that love not only comes in romance or holding hands, but it can also come in the form of maternal love and a mother's affection. In the lab, we might call that oxytocin, but in the real world, it's a mother holding its baby. If you could leave our listeners with one advice on maternal health or mother's love, what would it be?
All right. Okay. I just would like to emphasize that even though we talk more on the oxytocin function or the roles of oxytocin, but I believe that even though we understand that oxytocin is one of the nature's most powerful way of helping the mothers to connect, to recover, and also to feel safe, but I believe that as a community, as a healthcare providers, as a family, we always can support this by simply offering the touch, our time, and also tenderness to these new mothers.
That is beautiful. Okay, and with that, we are wrapping up today's episode of ChemLife Podcast Season 5. Thank you, Doctor. I'm hoping to see you again for maybe another episode. Thank you. I'm Alisa.
Thank you so much.